John Pearce, who's a lecturer in the department here, has been sort of taking notes during the day and is going to act as a sort of rapporteur for the day. And so he'll make some observations, and then maybe to respond to that, we have a panel. So Michelle Granahan is a primary school teacher based in County Mayo, but with a very long experience of her own adventure sports and of working with people outdoors. Marianne Fanninger Maz is an instructor at Capnalee Outdoor Education Centre and is going to maybe talk more from the perspective of being an outdoor instructor and that perspective on outdoor learning. And John Moriarty is a graduate of the social care degree programme and has long experience of both working outdoors and particularly working in youth and community settings, and he might respond to it from that perspective. So we'll kick it over to Mr. Pearce.
Hi. All right. So yeah, I was going to go really briefly through all 4 sessions just to remind us of what was in them very briefly, and then a few of my own thoughts on trying to make some links between them all, and so some discussion comes through like that.
So we started off with the learning theory session earlier on, where we looked at behaviourism, cognitivism, constructivism, and connectivism. And I suppose one of the key things that jumped out for me there was the holistic experience, that it's not just focused on one type of learning, it's all different types of learning and catering for more than just one type of learning style or preference. And that adds a kind of a layer of complexity to the learning and to the teaching of it as well. I suppose the last one, that one was, I think as Lorcan said, about putting names on different things that we already did. But that also deepens your understanding and allows you to become even more used to using these techniques and layering them together like we were talking about in that session as well. The second session looked at high quality outdoor learning and adventuretainment. And I suppose the extremes of either side are a purely educational experience versus just an adrenaline thrill or a rush, and everything in between that. And trying to look at those in terms of the, I think Aina that said it, activity, intelligent facilitation and intent of the activity and what the focus of that session or that experience or those experiences is for that group on that day or during that experience. The third session then looked at outdoor learning in the school curriculum. One of the major points I was thinking about there that came up was looking at it doesn't really matter if it's indoors or outdoors as long as it's education and it's worthwhile for the students. So I suppose it's thinking about, is it suitable to go outside or is it more suited to be inside for that experience and going from there. And then looking at all the different links in terms of the complexity of adding progression into the different activities for different groups as they go through the years of schooling. The last session that we just finished looked at connectivism in the 21st century learners. I suppose had a focus on the use of technology within learning, but also what I was kind of taking from was that there's almost a sense of freedom for the learner there, that the learning can now become learner-led rather than the learner the learner can lead it rather than being led by someone else who apparently knows more than them about what they want, if that makes any sense. And some of the words I wrote down at the top of the page here, just trying to make sense of it all. We looked at models of practice, which I suppose inform your professionalism and the accuracy of what you're doing and why you're doing it in the first place. A lot of this comes down to the perception of you as the person in charge, along with the group and what they want out of it and why they're there in the first place. How many times they're going to do it? Is it just a one-off? Is there more than one session? There was a lot of ambiguity, especially with the high quality outdoor learning and the adventuretainment stuff. You could see a lot of ambiguity and almost uncertainty in the sense of what it was actually for, which kind of comes back to that idea of intent and context, which came up in some of the different sessions as well. Why are we doing this in the first place and what's it for? And I suppose the last couple of words I wrote down were, there's an amount of variation involved in this in terms of you could be doing the same thing every time, but it could be very different depending on what age the group are or what the weather is doing or why you're doing it in the first place. The longevity of the task came to my mind as well in terms of, well, is this just a one-off activity that we're just going to do once? Are we going to do it for a week? Is it a year-long thing? Is it going to be for our whole lives? Because that can change the context or the ideas behind why we're doing it and what we're going to do. That's pretty much my comments, I suppose.
Great.
Hope it makes sense.
Thank you very much, JP. So I might pass the mic over to each of the lads. I'm going to pick on John because he's here beside me first, and maybe ask him to make some comment back to JP's observations.
Okay, the one that struck me earlier, I took a note on it. We were talking about connectivism and stuff, and talking about disconnect and connecting with the environment and connecting with people and connecting with place and everything else. But I wrote down connection, disconnection, like on and off. And like is on a bad thing. People were talking about people being inside in offices and the drudge and all that kind of stuff. But some of those people in those offices, that's their adrenaline rush. And everything else is they're off. And but I was also, what was actually in my head was about the fact that it's your connection with yourself is really the main point. And I don't know how much of that we're doing, because it was mentioned, Robert was talking about connection with people, and that you come from a form of getting educated, getting knowledge, you bring that forward, you have your experience is moving forward with that knowledge to a group of people. And are you placed within your, this might sound mad, but are you kind of centered within yourself, knowing where you're coming from to do what you're doing, which is like what you were saying, your intent. Where you're starting from, where are you moving to, where are those people there when they come in the door, and where do they want to be, where do they need to be, where do you wish them to be. But then it's that kind of stuff is in my head, based on what you said, and that's maybe very left of everything else that's gone on today, but I'm coming from that kind of socially arty, backgroundy, drumming thing. So that's my piece for now.
Thanks very much, John.
Hello everyone. The bit that stood out for me was definitely the theories and the isms, I suppose, as it was put earlier on. I suppose when getting into the outdoors, first of all, you do it just because was the crack in the band, really. It was such a laugh and I got paid for it, to be honest. And then slowly, as you kind of move on, you become more self-aware and you become a little bit, God, there's meaning behind what I do, and, you know, I have an impact on what I do towards other people. So what kind of gave it to me was Lorcan when he said the jug and the mug, and, you know, that's what we do these days. And it's nice to have the backing behind it and realise now that it's not just the crack and the bant anymore, that it is kind of got meaning to what we do. And then fast forward to the connectivism, that, you know, the outdoor, I suppose, was kind of, we were the poor cousins off to the side, really, and now we're kind of brought to the fore, to the front. So with connectivism, we need to be kind of era responsive and to try and keep up with what's going on in order to be taken seriously, I think, and to, you know, have substance to what we do. So with the theories and stuff, it kind of, I suppose, gave back into me to what I actually do. You know, I'm not just, come on, we go for a splash, or I'll throw you off a cliff, or what was it, take your money and get on your way, or whatever. So as much as it is, but so to me that's the bit that was the educational part of it, and the isms gave a foundation and grounding to what I do now, that it's long ago was it the crack in the band, but it's became, and it was a vocation with the pay, and now it's kind of a job, and it's, you know, recognised, and I think that's the positive for me. So
thanks, Maz.
And it's about time too, because like I would have come from teaching straight away from school, and then left and did outdoor education and worked in that world, and I was really surprised when I went into outdoor education world how professional a lot of the outdoor education world was. And I was working in a summer camp in France, you know, so it was very much kids over having the crack, and it was good fun, but it was very professional and it was very educational, and it was very, you know, and it always surprised me how much more it was to me than the actual primary school environment, which obviously doesn't say much for them, what I think. But it isn't that, I don't think, it's not the teachers aren't professional, it's just that I think a lot of outdoor education people were really thinking about all of those bits, and thinking about their learning theories, and they were thinking about all of the, and it really came across to me that it was a very professional area, and I think it needs to be recognised. There's a big bugbear for me, or a big thing that I find very interesting today, with the way that you've introduced the day today and the way that we progress through the day. We started off with the climate, like the looking at the climbing analogy and the kayaking and all of those, but they're all very gear-based and very gear-intensive. And say, myself as a primary school teacher, if you look at the curriculum, they only mention kayaking or climbing just in 5th and 6th class, just as a, you know, go to a centre and you can do kayaking and climbing. But there's so many references to outdoor education across the boards, across all the subjects, across all the ages. And that's where I think that outdoor education lists could really help. And there's a massive scope for that, where there's a big gap, because we're not actually, like, a lot of teachers aren't bringing the outdoors into that area. And there's a massive, I think, that like the games we were playing then outside, that we were doing maths, we were doing, you know, obviously we could be doing language. So there's an awful lot of scope there to try and bring outdoor education into all of the other subjects. And I think that's a good place to start.
Very good. Thanks very much, Michelle. Could I throw it open to the floor, so if people have some questions or comments or things they'd like to add, their perspective or whatever.
Right. Thank you very much, for putting it on. I come from a long time ago as a voluntary instructor, and we just got thrown in. Yeah, and we did it. Never lost anybody yet. Didn't. Yeah, you know, that's a good thing. It's great to see the upskilling. Yeah, as instructors, as canoeists, as climbers, and as others. The big problem is when you work in a center all the time, your own skills go down because you're working on your skill all the time. So that's one thing that centers or outdoor education people have to think about. Please help your instructors to upskill, because they're just hired in for a few days, and how are they going to do it? Yeah? But you are thinking about the upskilling, about the background of it, and I think that's absolutely great. Yeah? And I have come back into education. I'm teaching now in a secondary school, and I had a beautiful sunflower, you know, and there is some mathematical formula that's actually in nature. I didn't know about it till some maths teacher taught me about it. And then I could show it to all the teachers and say, oh, I forgot the name now, sorry about that. But yeah, there is some Italian mathematician that brought, and everything in nature seems to be put together that way. Yeah? So that brought it together for me. I just teach organic horticulture in a secondary school. Yeah? But that brought it together for me, and there can be so much more of that. And you're part of that as what we're doing now as well. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Larkin, maybe you pass the mic over. Anyone else, any comments?
So I forgot, was it Mairead, is it? Michelle, sorry. I thought it was actually very, quite nice actually to hear someone from what I'd say slightly outside the outdoor activity scene to say that we were professional. So that was actually something very, very nice to hear, because I think for a lot of us, I think I could speak for a lot of instructors, we feel that we work a lot of times with teachers, but there's a disconnect. I feel like sometimes teachers would look at us like we're not aware of what we're doing, or if we are even aware of it. I'll admit, like I said, 2 months ago, I had never heard of learning theories. So it's great to hear that, you know, maybe that's in France and it's not the same here. And that'd be interesting. I'd love to hear your view. Do you feel that outdoor instructors, as is now, are we quite professional in what we deliver? Are we interested in what we deliver?
It depends on obviously where you're coming from, because we've all gone on school tours. I take kids out to school tours, you know, but it depends where you're going to. But I do think that there's so many instructors that I've come across are so professional and know their stuff, and it's really important to like, it'd be very, very good to actually meet a lot of to meet teachers and to maybe work a bit more with schools, because I think we've a lot to give each other. Mm.
We used to run a program in Capnalee called Orbit, that went orbital, and it was outdoor resources in oh God, Lord, what was it again?
Outdoor resources
brought into teaching, and then it was and learning thrown on the end. And what happened with us and the teachers, so say we would liaise with you, Michelle, and you're covering something of rocks or whatever in geography, and like these are the worksheets. you would bring the worksheets or send them to us the few days beforehand. Instructors do a little bit of nerding on it to make sure we know what we're talking about, and then we filled them in as we go. So we took a walk through the Gap of Dunlow, and it was the Paternoster Lakes, but so that the child wasn't doing it on their own, it wasn't homework, we would sit down and do it as a group. So nobody was kind of, God, I didn't get what they said, or I didn't hear what they said. It was all kind of collaborative and together. So it was, I suppose, us working with the primary school. Now we needed from me, we don't have the books or whatever, but once we had the worksheets, we could kind of fill in and bring it, and they could see it in life and touch it and hold it, and you know, that kind of a way. So there was a course there, and I don't know what happened to Larkin. Funding gone, probably. What happened? Yeah, funding gone. So it was there, and I think it was there, but I think it needs to come back that way again. You know, it was run, and it was a huge success. It was run with the community college in Killarney, to keep the kids in school, wasn't it? So, and that they drop out before junior cert. So what happened was they do first year and they wouldn't really kind of go on any further. So of the 16 that signed up to do the orbital course, the 16 sat and did their junior cert, and they went on then into the second part of, you know, into leaving cert. So, you know, there is, you know, validation in what we do and, you know, credit and stuff, but it's just to get it out there, and I'm not sure how we can keep going.
I think it's a very interesting, I'm okay, thanks. I think it's a very interesting point, the idea of using outdoor ed as a school's retention program, because that was how it was funded in Killarney. I have a mic, thanks. But I think just the point that was made at the back about maybe connecting teachers and people in formal education with outdoor education instructors, whether that's providers in a public provision outdoor centre or in a private centre. I think part of it comes down to language, and certainly in the BA in outdoor learning here, one of the objectives we had was to try and equip the graduates of our programme with a language where they could actually converse with the teachers comfortably, where they were talking a common language in terms of teaching and learning, and a common language in terms of the curriculum, and how you could use creativity to bring the curriculum to the children and to bring it to life in novel settings, and that meant outdoors.
I think that would be key, actually. What you're saying about trying to get them together is, if you say curriculum linked, teachers will go, oh great, I'll do it. So curriculum linked is very, very important, because we are massively overloaded in the primary school. Every time something new comes out, healthy eating, let's all run a mile every day. These are things that we're just from September. We're just being loaded and loaded and loaded, and then let's do more IT. Let's do more, and you can't make the day longer. Whereas if you are teaching something that is in geography, it's in SPHE, it's in history, it's all of those things that are already in the curriculum, because the curriculum is fabulous. It's very open, so you can. It is definitely very curriculum linked. So by educating people, outdoor instructors, into how you can talk to primary school teachers and say this is actually the curriculum, and then it really does help, because then people don't feel it's an extra; they feel it's adding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah.
Great, thanks. Can we just wait for the mic?
I'm just thinking about like the Heritage in School scheme, and just thinking how maybe you could supplement that with outdoor learning specialists. Like the Heritage in School scheme seems to be kind of from the environmental side of it and the nature side of it and science end of it. But like even some of the games we played today, I'm just thinking if there was people who could come into a school, like a register of people who are trained in outdoor learning, like doing the activities that we've done today, the school books them the same way they book a heritage specialist. School pays half of the fee, and then that specialist comes out for a day or a series of days and works with different classes. Like there's huge benefits to having experts come into a school. And I've witnessed like teachers are really, they respond positively to it, because there's somebody who's very comfortable in their field showing them activities that they can do to link with the curriculum outdoors, and it gives the teacher as well as the students a bit of confidence to go out and do things. Like if they were to do the activities like we were doing today, the teacher would come up with ideas to follow on from that. Yep. So there's more chance that they'd actually take the kids out the following week. Yep. Whereas, currently there doesn't seem to be a way in that's kind of, you know, it seems like people are trying to battle in and get the teachers to kind of almost, you know, do these things, but they've got an overloaded curriculum, or tell them to do it, but they won't understand. So actually to take these people into the schools and doing it, because I think the Heritage in Schools scheme works very well. Yeah, I think it's a very good point, and certainly I have students here in ITTralee who are studying field biology and wildlife tourism, and part of their work isn't just tourism but also working in schools. And so I've been encouraging them as outdoor educators to register with the Heritage in Schools program so that they can go onto the panel and so that they can be available to run outdoor learning activities and support the teachers in schools. I think it is I think it's finding channels like that is a good idea. I think one of the problems perhaps is that some of the practices which have developed over time is that sometimes teachers associate outdoor learning and outdoor education with the school visit, which happens sometime in June for one day. And particularly because now of the cost of transport, you know, the cost of transporting the children to their outdoor day is often equal to the cost of the actual tuition or learning in the day. But it's to maybe move the idea that an outdoor learning day is a day that happens off-site to something that happens closer to the school. And certainly previous students in the BA in outdoor learning here and students in the health and leisure program here at ITTralee, we have a very good relationship with our local Educate Together school, and they now have not just their annual sports day but their annual outdoor learning day, and every child from junior infants to 6th class goes out and works with our students on taking the curriculum outdoors. And the resources that our students use with the teachers, they leave with the teachers afterwards, you know. And I suppose it's trying to stimulate some of those initiatives, but also to change that perspective among the teachers that outdoor learning is something separate. Lucy had a question there, so if you don't mind waiting for the mic. Thank you.
It wasn't really a question, but I'm one of the people on the Heritage in Schools, and I do know that this year, thankfully, I don't know if it was previous to that they've actually asked that you do most of the work outside of the classroom. So we do a little bit inside the classroom, and then we go outside and play games around the education, whatever we're teaching on the day, which is great. And bringing the educators, the outdoor educators and the teachers together, we had a great event down in Southwest Kerry. We organised ITTralee Learning Landscapes, and it was all about place-based learning and learning in the outdoors. So it was open to parents, teachers, outdoor educators, and anyone who was interested in the heritage and environment of the area. So we had things from dune ecology to learning on beaches, herbal medicine, herbal gardens for teachers, lots of different things happening over a weekend. And it was the first time it was held down here, so we will be holding it again in October 2017, because it was a good success, and the feedback was very good as well from it. So it is bringing the educators and the teachers together. So ITTralee Learning Landscapes 2017, October.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Yeah. Can we pass the mic over?
So having a moment to think and listen to you all here. Right, a lot of people here are outdoor instructors. Yeah, that's what they're still called in centers. Yeah? Right, you're making them into teachers of outdoor education. Yeah, and I think that's what this is all about. I don't know if that's new or that you're using that all the time, but that's the big step for me. Yeah, going from outdoor activity instructor to teacher of outdoor education. Yeah, and if we can get that in the mind of schools, get it in the mind of students, yeah, I think then you're going there.
Maybe if I could just answer briefly to that, I suppose. You know, when we put together the bachelor program here, we called it a Bachelor of Outdoor Learning, you know, and now there are many different terms to describe education in the outdoors. I suppose the reason we chose that name is because internationally it's considered very broad, and it covers over many, many different areas. And I suppose there are many different titles, you know, whether somebody calls himself an outdoor education instructor or an outdoor education tutor, an outdoor pursuits instructor, an adventure education instructor. I can't recall who did the study, but I think they came up with 70 different terms to describe that kind of, Clifford Knapp, thank you, the profession or the activity that somebody does. And what I think I'd like to think that we espouse here in ITTralee is a kind of a democratization of the outdoors, which says that nobody owns it and nobody has sort of intellectual property rights on you know, the role. Like I know, for instance, my wife is a trained physiotherapist, and you mentioned the term physical therapist to her, it gets her goat up, you know. So there are some terms, professional terms, which sometimes can grate off each other. I'd like to think that in outdoor learning, we include people who are coming from formal education, people who are coming from informal education from youth work, people who are coming from further education, people who are coming from outdoors or adventure education, and that we can all be in the one broad church, if that isn't an inappropriate term to use. Okay. Has anybody got any other observations or comments? Well, maybe I could make a comment if nobody else has one on our students of the BA in Outdoor Learning. How did you think they did today?
Congratulations.
2.5 months.
Then they were very, very well.
So I suppose the approach we've taken on our degree program is that, again, with that kind of communitas feeling and the kind of democratization of it, that it's not like we're taking people in from the sector into a classroom and closing the doors and that the knowledge is somehow privilege. We want to create opportunities for the students on our program to talk to their community, that's you folks, their work colleagues, their fellow instructors, the teachers that they interact with, the bosses of their outdoor centres, the people from NCCA and the Teaching Council, everybody who is influential in that circle, and that they can share the knowledge as they're discovering it. And they are literally, what you have seen today is them presenting their perspective on knowledge that they have developed over I suppose, since the 1st of September when they started here. And I suppose the idea with our program is that at regular intervals, each time they do 1 or 2 modules, that they will then hold a public seminar and share that with the community. So I'd say well done to them. So thank you. Okay. If we don't have a whole lot of other questions, I might maybe kind of bring things to a close, because I'm conscious that lots of people have travelled quite a distance today. I think our students have maybe opened the door to us in some regards in terms of thinking about different areas and perspectives. I suppose I'd like to think that we are continuing this concept of sharing. We have notes that the students have prepared, and they're very, very keen for us to make sure we share them over to everybody. So everybody who has attended today and who registered and gave us their emails, the materials that the students have used today, we will email over to you this afternoon. We will be meeting again on the 9th of December. We're going to have another seminar, and it's in the area of looking at maybe the origins or the philosophy or the different natures of outdoor learning and outdoor education internationally. So we'll be looking at a variety of different models and sharing that experience and our students learning on it. We'll do that here in Tralee as a free seminar, and we'll be inviting people to join us in a live stream for the afternoon again. So maybe just one last, I might put some of our graduates, because we have a number of graduates of the program here, so I might put them sort of on the spot to give some response, because you guys started, you were in the hot seat here 3 years ago. Would you have any particular comments on the lads today? Did it remember?
It's easier. The seminars get easier, they really do. The first one you're not really sure, but they do get easier, and you know, you become more confident as you do them, and you know, it's more fluid.
Terence, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was very refreshing to see everyone working so well together, and I felt relieved when the first group finished today, so I know exactly what you're going through. And I don't know if you're aware of this or you feel the benefits right now, but for me, certainly being put on the spot and under pressure for these seminars, I think you'll do 6 this year, 4, 6 this year. Yeah, 4 of them. Yeah, it felt like 6, but anyway. They really stood to me, you know, and the learning environment that comes from the seminars and working with each other, I'm sure you're aware of it, we're very, very strong. I thought the presentations were fantastic and everyone's really confident, and you can see the cogs are going and people are starting to question certain things or wonder about certain things. And actually I do have a quick question or point, and if we have time,
please,
if that's okay. The high quality outdoor learning thing really gets my juices going, and it's something that I took from this course and have implemented into my work in cross-care with youth development. But I'm wondering if the question has been asked, or if you guys do this over a coffee, how can we make an Irish equivalent of the English Sports Council? And what would be different to that? And a big one for me, and I was speaking with Tomas recently about this, is, you know, our culture is kind of similar, but we still have our own cultural values that are different. They're very Irish. So I don't know if any of you guys have thought about this or spoken about it, but is there anything you would do or any suggestions around making our own high quality outdoor learning 10 steps or 10 outcomes? Oh.
Right.
Thanks, Terence.
Specifically not how you set that up, yeah? But I think a very big looking at the different organizations and what's going on. The language used on the sidelines of sport here, for me, somebody coming from outside and looking at this since 1979, right? How can you look after that and improve on it? Yeah? How are our young people educated on the sidelines of specifically GAA and the language and other stuff that goes on there? And I think it's a very bad thing. So yes, if you want to set up something like that, I think it's a very big one, but that's just me looking from the outside at what's going on here.
Yeah, and I kind of agree to some extent, and it's not, I know it's not a debate, but you know, the English Sports Council very much focuses on outcomes, 10 outcomes, and I wonder how in control we think we are with outcomes, or is it more around the processes of outdoor education? So are we in control of the processes or the outcomes? And I think that's where our differences might lie in Ireland, that we could focus more on processes as opposed to outcomes. But anyway,
Thank you.
I actually think it's a really good point, and it's something that with my current workplace I get to see a lot of is strategic plans, and I think that the outdoor educators in Ireland, that there could be a definite need for a strategic plan on outdoor education and how to put forward that we're all on the same line. Do we want to all be seen as more professional? Do we all want to be seen as educators? And I think until we decide that and we come up with a strategy, I don't know how far we go with the equivalent of an Irish Sports Council, because we all need, and I think that is the problem, is we're all following processes. We're not trying to follow up to a goal. We're just going along.
Great. Has anyone any other comment on that? I think it's a really good point, and you know, I suppose one of the things that we've tried to do in the BA program here is to look globally at practices around outdoor learning and outdoor education. And you know, in the previous running of the course, we looked at practices from Japan right through to Canada, you know, and Northern Europe. So I suppose what we would like to think is that in Ireland there are some excellent practices out there, and maybe what we need to do is to shine a light on those excellent practices and not say too much about measures or outcomes just yet, but just highlight those, and that if you can highlight little like spotlights on those around the country, that eventually all those spotlights will kind of join up and that maybe something will kind of flow from that. But there isn't, I don't believe, a kind of a sense of unity across the sector. And I think that's okay. And I think even using terms like outdoor learning rather than outdoor education helps us to keep a broad perspective across Ireland, so that it isn't just about, say, public provision outdoor education. It isn't just about outdoor learning in a formal education setting or in non-formal or youth work, that it can be across all of them. And that I think in Ireland, we're very, very good at distinguishing ourselves from other people and identifying how we're different from other people. It's a much more challenging thing to say how we're similar to other people, and to see good practice in other people's work and say, yeah, that's very similar to the kind of things we're doing. Ronan, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Tomas. Actually, Terence, a few things I was going to say. Tomas said, and it was in relation to conference earlier this year in GMIT. A few of us sat down around the table afterwards and a few conversations, and it kind of developed online. And that thing did happen about, we were all able to kind of distinguish how we were different from other people. Some people saying it was other people adventure therapy, others coming into the professional, just running activities and that side of it. But it was definitely trying to find that conversation between the different groups, and it did break down. It's still sitting there with the context. It does need a little bit of a kick in the backside or a verbal push. So if anyone's interested, there's a few of us in the room who are involved with the process. Hopefully we could kick-start it again. There was a conversation started back in April, and just trying to get that similarities showing up instead of also how we differ from each other.
Great. Yeah, please, John.
The place I think that we're absolutely common is our people. Everybody comes through. That's I think that's your baseline. I'm working from there. And one thing struck me was that it was said earlier, somebody mentioned it, that people work better outdoors. You know, they do better outdoors and stuff, and I just made a point that people don't necessarily feel better outdoors. They need to feel better inside, and they feel better anywhere. So there's an element to that. I think we've got to go bottom and work up in everything. And all this stuff has to be done too. I think that's something that has to be kept at the centre of everything. So.
Okay. Folks, thank you very much for travelling today and for coming along to our seminar. Thank you very much to our students who put a lot of work into preparing and presenting today. And thank you very much to the folks who've joined us online this afternoon. We will try and package as much of the presentations into sort of consumable, sort of bite-sized clips and put them up to our YouTube channel. So it's just called Outdoor Learning ITTralee. You can find it on YouTube and maybe follow it from there. Okay, thank you very much, folks. And now that we're off air, can I say thank you very much to our AV guys who did so much work for us today. And to Chris, who I think aged about 2 years when the HEA net went down.